Hi there, and welcome to the first day of the 5-day 5 poses Yin Yoga Challenge. Excuse me for the technical hitches, just setting up everything before we start. So I'm live today on YouTube and Facebook. So I hope you can see me. If you have any questions or problems, please let me know in the comments below so I can ensure they aren't repeated tomorrow. But this is actually the first time I'm going live on YouTube and Facebook. So it's a bit of a challenge. So thank you for your patience. And just once again, welcome to the first day of the 5-day 5 poses Yin Yoga Challenge, running from the 24th to the 28th of May. So from Monday to Friday, every day at 8:30. So I'm Annchen from Yin Yoga with Annchen. And in this challenge, we're going to be exploring the 5 of the 7 archetypal Yin Yoga poses. We're going to be focusing on the muscles in the target area of one pose each day. And we're going to use a practical exploration of the target area. So we're going to basically look at the different pose variations, and through that, we'll be able to find how this affects the joints and how this affects the skeletal elements. Because it's quite complex to go into this in a YouTube video or a video on Facebook. So it's nice to experiment and actually find a practical application of it. So we're going to start each class with an exploration of the pose, of the variations of the pose. And then what I encourage you to do is to choose which variation suits your unique body. Remember, each of us have a unique body with different shapes and sizes of bones. And so we need to find which option works best for us. So today's focus is the shoelace family and the target area. So when I talk about the target area, this means the stretch in a certain area that you should be feeling, should be noticing. Is what we call the gluteal muscles. So the gluteal muscles are the muscles in the hip, in the hip area, and then the muscles also will be called the thoracolumbar muscles, which are the muscles that run all along your spine. And so those are the muscles that we will be stretching in this pose. So this pose, one of the challenging aspects of this pose is that it requires quite a lot of what we call external rotation of the femur. So the femur is actually your leg, the top of your leg here, which fits into the hip joint. And depending on the position of your femur, you will have more or less rotation, external rotation. So how do you know? Well, maybe you don't know, but maybe, and because you don't know, let's have a look at how to test the external rotation you have. So a really simple test that I encourage you to do is, if you could just right now just try to identify where your ASIS is. That is the sort of bony part of your pelvis. That if you can actually just palpitate it here, and you can check where your knees are in relation to the ASIS. And you will see here that my ASIS is above my knees, but there are some people whose knees will be up above the hips when they are seated. And if that is your case, I would recommend that you sit on a bolster. Sitting on the bolster will immediately bring your knees down and make the whole experience much more comfortable, especially as we'll be sitting in this pose, because it's an asymmetrical pose. We'll be sitting for 5 minutes on each side. So if you're in a position which is uncomfortable, it could be really a strain for your knees. So, right, so let's get started. What I will do is, This is the practical exploration. So every class, we're going to start with this practical exploration. So what I would encourage you to do is just try it out. Try to do the pose. We'll stay here for about 30 seconds just to give you the chance to get into the pose. And if you find it comfortable, stay there. If you find it impossible, don't go there. Yeah. But it's also a way, if you are practicing, you can get to see these different variations. And also if you're a teacher, so you can get an idea of all these different variations that you could teach or you could offer your students. So the first one, if you could come to a comfortable seated position and then basically crossing one leg above the other one. And here I'm going to stack my knees and the feet are close to my hips. So this is the tight shoelace, what we call the tight shoelace. And once you are in this position, if this position is comfortable for you, what you'll be doing is basically bending forward to see if you could feel that nice stretch. So if you are in this position, if it's comfortable for you, just come forward a little and see if you can find a nice stretch. Okay, variation 2. Bring your legs out in front of you. And this one is called the wide shoelace. And once again, just sit here. If you find this position absolutely impossible, please don't go here, just observe. But know that there are some people who find this accessible, they like this position. And from here, once again, moving forward and noticing if you find that nice stretch. Right? Okay. So let's move to the next one. So the next one is what we call the loose shoelace. And this is where basically I have my right knee on top of my left foot and my right foot on top of my left knee. This is the loose shoelace. And believe it or not, this requires quite a lot of external rotation, as the previous pose that we've just seen applies. So once again, leaning forward to check if you have that feeling, that rotation, that stretch in the outer hip. And now we get, perhaps some of you are saying, but these poses are impossible. So the next pose would be basically bringing my foot in front of me. And this is basically crossed legs without one of them on top. This is called untied shoelace. Once again, coming forward. I hope you're getting closer. I hope you've identified one or maybe two variations that suit you. And if not, if you are finding this is really uncomfortable for your knees especially, then we come to the broken shoelace. We basically just sit with your legs in a comfortable position and from there leaning forward. Okay, and we have one more, because for some people all these options are impossible. So we have 6 variations here. This one is the reclining shoelace or reclining sleeping swan, depending who's talking about it. And this one is come lying on your back, bend your knees, and bring your right leg, so your right ankle is on top of your right knee, your left knee, sorry. And perhaps this is enough for you. Perhaps from here you feel a nice stretch in your right hip, the right glutes, but perhaps you feel nothing. And so what you could do is either clasp on your shin or clasp behind your knee. Just stay here for a moment to check how that feels. Do you feel a nice stretch there? This is a particularly variation that I advise for people that have tight hips or that have issues with their knee, because here you can actually move around the position of your foot to find what works for you. So you could either bring the foot down or you could bring it up, just listening always to your body. Okay. Right, so let's just rock up into the seated position. And now comes the most challenging part, because what I'd like you to do is actually choose a position, choose a variation that suits you. And I encourage you, first of all, try not to watch me, because I know we all have this innate tendency of watching the teacher and copying the teacher. So that's point number one. And then the second point is, because of course I want you to choose the variation that suits you. And then the second option is, please remember that we are asymmetrical. So you may find that when you are on that you may find that one variation works okay on one side, but maybe another variation works better on the other side. And as mentioned before, we're going to be in each variation. So we're going to do the pose, which is asymmetrical. So we have to do the right leg first and then the left leg. And we'll stay in the pose for 5 minutes. So I encourage you now to choose the variation that best suits you. If you have noticed that your hips are rocking backwards or that your knees are worrying you, then I would definitely recommend sitting up on a bolster. Okay, so let's get started now and moving into the option that suits you best, that suits your body best. And at the beginning, or actually at the end of the 5 minutes, you will hear this sound. This is a Tibetan singing bowl. And when you hear that, come up slowly, and then I will show you a counter pose. So we'll explore 2 counter poses, one at the end of the one side and one at the end of the other. Right, so I invite you to get started. And so from here, slowly moving yourself downwards. If you have a spare bolster, you could also lean down onto a bolster, allowing the head to relax. So remembering once again with this pose, we are looking for a nice stretch in the outer hip, the outer right hip. That is the gluteal muscles. And also you will notice that my back is rounded. And the back is rounded in order to stretch those muscles I was telling you about. So the thoracolumbar muscles. Remember, Yin is a non-muscular practice. The focus is to try to relax the muscles in order to target and to stress the connective tissue. particularly around the joints. And yin is basically one of those very few exercises where we can safely stress the joints. Because in most types of dynamic exercise, we need to activate the muscles to protect the joints. But we need to also stress all tissues in order to keep them healthy. And that's why yin gives us that perfect opportunity where we can safely stress the joints. How are you doing? Are you still there? Are you feeling the stretch? Are you enjoying it? Of course, if you are in this position, whatever variation you're in, and you're finding it that you have pain, remember pain is always an indication for us that we need to adjust. So either we are being too aggressive or we are not being aware of the messages of our body. So we need to adjust. If this continues, then please move out of the position, especially if the pain is in our knees. It's really important to be aware of that. So we have 1 minute more. So enjoy this nice gentle stretch to the outside of the hip and relaxing. For your back. So now slowly coming up. And now slowly moving out. So first of all, I'll just recommend straightening out the legs. Straighten out the legs. Oh. So just releasing. First of all, I always recommend coming out and just releasing into what we call the rebound pose. So just giving an opportunity to your body, especially to the area you're stretching, to release. And now one of the counterposes could be if you bend your knees and your feet are hip width apart. And now just very slowly allow the hips to move from side to side. And this is what we call windshield wipers. It's great to release any tension you might be feeling in your hips. Usually I give it about a minute between poses. Okay, right, so that is the one side. So now let's go to the other side. So as I said before, remember you can choose a different variation. When I started, I was in the tight shoelace, and I'm now going to experiment with the loose shoelace. So now my left leg is coming on top. And so from here, once again, moving forward. And we'll be here for 5 minutes. Grab your bolster if you need. You could also be leaning like this, remember? So wherever you get to, coming down, relaxing and noticing. Now we have that nice stretch in the outer left hip. So one of the challenging parts of teaching Yin is encouraging people not to be too aggressive. Because remember, this is not a typical type of Yin, a typical type of yoga, where we are encouraged to stay in a position, to really go for it and stay in a position for, perhaps 1 to 5 breaths. In Yin, we are staying here for a longer period of time. So we have these suggestions for getting into the pose. And the first thing would be try to listen to your body. Listening to your body means coming into the pose and staying there as long as you feel. We try to look for a limit in the body. So we come forward, and when we feel the body automatically stops us, then we listen. So then we listen to what the body is saying. And then as we listen, we notice that the body starts to open up. And as the body opens up, perhaps there's a little bit of tension there. Perhaps we feel we can move a little forward, a little more forward. Or perhaps we won't. It depends on you, because some of us have that ability. Some of us have in our bodies, we have that different bone structure that allows us to move forward. But perhaps we don't, and perhaps we'll never have that. So what we need to do is to explore the options. And that's why, for example, I offered the option of lying on your back and doing the reclining shoelace. So always listening to your body and perhaps trying to avoid the temptation of feeling like you need to copy the teacher, you need to do the same as everybody else. Try to get into listening to your body, finding out what is good for your unique body. And that is what I love about functional yoga. That functional yoga is basically about exploring and discovering what is good for your body. So we have 1 more minute to go. So wherever you are, relax and enjoy this stretch. Okay, so slowly coming up. Once again, stretching out the legs. And here we are in what we call the rebound pose. And you can just notice how it feels on this side. Perhaps it felt a bit more tension or a bit less tension. Just noticing the sensations that you have in your body. And now for a demonstration of another possible counter pose. So this is a bit more dynamic, which is quite nice. It's nice to end this practice with a bit of dynamic pose. So bring your feet also to the same position, sort of hip width apart, and your hands behind you, either the hands facing towards you or away from you. Just listen to your body, whatever feels good for your body. This is called the tabletop position, and we're going to move up on the inhale and then down on the exhale, and we're going to do that 3 times. So I hope you enjoy this. Are you ready? We're going to push the pelvis up. So inhale and up, exhale down, inhale up, exhale down, inhale up, exhale down. I think that was 3. Okay, great. Okay, so thanks very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was an interesting exploration of the variations of the shoelace pose. And what I would like you to do when you have a moment after watching this, please reflect on what we've gone through today. In the worksheets, if you've signed up for this challenge, you will receive a worksheet today. And in the worksheet, you will have all these different variations that we looked at. So what I'd encourage you to do is have a look and choose the variation that works for you. So reflect on it. So write, okay, which variation worked for you and why, and which of them didn't work for you and why, and then any other questions. And also sign up into my Facebook group, please. So you'll be able to we'll be able to connect, or you can connect on YouTube, whichever is more convenient for you. But in the Facebook group, what I'll be doing is I'll be posting my favorite variation today. So I'd love to hear from you and find out, so I can hear or see if you'd like to post a picture of one of your variations. Which variation did you like? And I think that's it. Today was a little bit quicker than a little bit longer than it should have been, because it should be 20 minutes. But tomorrow, tomorrow things will be more under control, I hope. And so it should be 20 minutes. So have a wonderful evening. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 8:30 GMT +2 for day 2 of the 5-day 5 poses Yin Yoga Challenge. Take care and have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.